So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make our salad Shirazi. The salad Shirazi is going to be, like I said, it's just tomatoes, cucumbers, onions diced up, and it's going to be in apple cider vinegar dressing. Start with our cucumber. Again, 1 English cucumber. I think for the purposes of this, again, this is a condiment. I'm not making this as an entire salad. I'm probably only going to use about half of this cucumber. So we'll go ahead and cut the cucumber in half. And because we're dicing these, I think this is a good dish that's going to get you to practice some of your knife skills. We're going to start by cutting these down into 4 pieces, like so. And then you can do this one at a time, or you can do a couple at a time. But you're basically just going to slice these lengthwise, and you're going to work them together. And this one's a little bit thicker than what I would like, so I'm going to do that one again. And we're going to basically just go for a dicing motion. So I don't have the best knife skills, but I'm working on it. So that's what you want them to look like. You want them to be little diced pieces, you know, about yay big or so. If you want, you can take the seeds out. If you don't, keep the seeds in. It's fine. I kept the seeds in for these ones because the seeds are pretty small in these English cucumbers. So we're going to get our bowl. We're going to put all of these guys in here. A little trick I learned: use the spine of your knife to be able to gather these guys and throw them in here. So we're going to do this 3 more times with the cucumber. Our cucumber is done. The next part we'll cut is our onion. So I'm kind of learning how to cut onions myself as far as efficiently is concerned. Because we're only using half a cucumber, I think we'll probably use 1, maybe 2 tomatoes for this. You don't want to overpower it with onion. So what we'll do is we'll actually cut this onion probably into 4ths and probably only use 1/4. And if I feel like I need to use a little bit more, then I'll go ahead and I'll use a little bit more here. So we'll cut it down lengthwise first. Peel off the outer skin. Now what I'm going to do, because I want this to be a pretty small, fine dice, I'm just going to cut off the edge that has the top and leave the bottom intact. I want the bottom to be intact because that's going to be how I hold this onion together when I cut this. So we're going to make a slit down the center like so. And we'll do a second one. And then we'll just kind of make a couple of little cross cuts. And then we're going to make very fine cuts horizontally. And this honestly should be enough for us for the purposes of this dish. So in this case, you know, my onion pieces, each piece is going to be about yay big or so. Just a little bit smaller than my cucumber cuts. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our tomato and we're going to cut our tomato into a dice. So I'm going to cut it in half once, cut it in half again. So we've got quarters. I personally do not like the seeds of the tomatoes. This is a completely optional step. If you like the seeds of the tomatoes, go ahead and leave them in. But I will tell you that the juice of the tomato, when you leave the seeds in, it's going to alter the flavor a little bit of your dressing, and it's going to give it more of a tomatoey acidic flavor. I personally don't like that so much, so I'm going to take those out. So I'm going to just kind of cut out the center here and just kind of scoop the seeds out with my thumb. And do the same thing with this one. And you want to use a pretty firm tomato when you're doing this, because this has to hold up to the texture of the salad. So then I'm just going to kind of do what we did with the cucumber, just thinly slice these. This is a julienne cut if we were just leave it as is, but we're obviously not going to leave it as is. And then we're going to take those little pieces that we just cut and dice them smaller. So we have a fairly thinly sliced tomato, and it's going to be about the same size thickness as your cucumbers. We're going to go ahead and throw that into our pot. Sorry, our bowl. We're not cooking this. Do the same thing with this one. So we now have our bowl here. Just going to grab a spoon, kind of mix up what we have. I personally like having more cucumbers than anything because cucumber is one of my favorite vegetables. But everything should be fairly small and homogeneous. You don't want it to be one cut bigger than the other. And so that's what we have. Then we're going to add some salt. Add some salt. Some black pepper. So now we're just going to add our dressing to it. So this is fairly simple. Again, I don't measure when I do this, but it's just going to be a little bit of olive oil. That was probably about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup there. And then we're going to use quite a bit of apple cider vinegar. I would say that was probably another close to 1/3 of a cup there that I added. We're just going to mix it all. And this is going to be, sitting in this vinegar. It's going to be very wet. It's going to absorb, and kind of like I said, it's going to become almost like a pickle. Add a little bit of black pepper. Already salted this. And just a little bit more dried mint. If I'm going to measure, I would say that was about 1.5 teaspoons. And this is done. So that's what it's going to look like.